There's a new shoe in town, and this one's ready to paint the town in red. It's time to run in the Altra Lone Peak 7. Now, to save you time and to get you all the answers you're looking for, I do most of the research so you don't have to do it all on your own. That's one of my core values of my channel. In addition, I've outlined the chapters to give you the dignity of choice and to make it easy for you to find your specific points of interest, be it the outsole or the midsole foam, etc. But toward the end of the video, I'll give an assessment of how I felt like the shoe performed and if I plan on using it in the future. So please be sure to stick around for all those highlights. After the disclosures, I'll be covering a few of the common items seen in a lot of these shoe reviews, such as the upper, colorways, overlays, midsole, outsole, etc. So feel free to skip around using the chapters if you like, but I do hope you stick around for all the points. I put a lot of work in these videos, so it means a lot if I see people are watching them from start to finish. Thank you. So let's cover those disclosures. I bought these shoes with my own money. These observations and opinions are my own, and no one gets to preview, edit, or provide feedback prior to me giving this review here on YouTube, and no one is paying me to review these shoes or make this video. I'm not sponsored by Altra or any of the brands seen or mentioned. Lastly, if you like any of the products you've seen in the video, I provided Amazon affiliate links in the description, and because it doesn't add any additional cost to you for using the affiliate links, please consider using one of my links if you're planning on making a purchase. Thank you. If I didn't introduce myself already, my name is Joel, and this is Time to Run. And today I'm going to be reviewing the Altra Lone Peak 7. Let's get started with the upper and the tongue. The upper is made of their quick dry air mesh, but in all actuality it simply looks like a different iteration of ripstop, which is a great quality material to have for an upper. Altra is calling this their seamless and stitchless upper, and it's one of their biggest updates in contrast to the outgoing model, the Lone Peak 6. I found the upper to be super comfortable and definitely stretchy enough to keep your toes happy in all the right places. There's actually a new rubber bumper above the toes that's really forgiving and not too stiff. This should help in situations that might otherwise hurt your toes, and it doesn't adversely restrict your natural toe movement. This shoe continues to offer gator points above the foot and behind the heel, but similarly to the Lone Peak 6, instead of a metal loop, as was in previous iterations, you'll be using the laces in front to hook into. Meanwhile, the back still has the familiar Velcro style attachment. I'm personally not a habitual user of gaiters, but they're there for you if you are. Altra continues its own long-standing tradition of making the top of the tongue an extension of the upper itself, whilst the padding portion is attached on the bottom side closest to the foot. So a seamless transition from the top of the toe box to the top of the tongue. And speaking of the tongue, it's padded perfectly, not too much material to crowd out the foot. It has a nice pull tab up top here, a nice fabric loop, and overall gets out of the way for a nice minimalist look. Also, I just love that there is a patch here to help prevent laces from digging into your tendons if you're someone who likes to ratchet down your laces. Here we have the laces, which are looped through a very secure eyelet system. I personally like it when there aren't too many extra lace fastening points here on the tongue, because I usually actually have to undo those laces anyway to fit my stride foot pod on the lower two crossings. So the lacing system here really works well for me. I have to say, I don't usually buy a red colorway, but the look of this shoe online was so attractive that I couldn't resist. This red, black, and pale yellow color combo really complement each other well. There's a fun design that I believe started with the LP6. It's an Easter egg of sorts, which is that they've incorporated the model number of the shoe in their logo. Here you can see the 7 used as an accent to the peak. There are welded overlays along the lateral and medial portion of the shoe, including their Ultra logo here. So this portion here is actually kind of more like a window, where it's see-through, but only adjusts the gusset, so you can't see, for example, like the color of your socks. More welded overlays that extend toward the back and the rear of the shoe here, giving this back portion a cool mountain range appearance. The other side you have a similar design with the welded overlays and the Ultra name and logo, but without the transparent ripstop. And before we get to the midsole, I'll just cover you have a nicely padded Ortholite insole that's removable if you so choose. I personally never use any insoles other than the ones that come with the shoe, so I wouldn't be the best person to ask about those. But this shoe has plenty of room inside if you so choose to use a different insert of your choice. So Altra calls their midsole Ego Foam. Yes, a play on the words alter ego. It's well cushioned, it's nimble, it's quite responsive. No complaints here. It feels like a more cushioned ride than previous pairs as well. As far as the specs of the shoe, these are exclusive to my size 12. And let me just take a second. To ask you, do you even consider the weight of your shoes as part of the decision-making process? And I'm serious, I don't think I've ever thought about that once. I see a shoe review, I find out if the person likes it or not, maybe watch a comparison video between two shoes I'm considering, I waffle, and then I waffle some more, and then I pull the trigger and buy something. But not once do I actually compare the two side by side and ask myself, what's the difference in weight? So I'm actually asking you to comment on this. Is this even a point of relevance to you? I mean, the shoe size I wear is very common, so there's a higher likelihood that there's going to be a point of relevance and relatability between most of the guys who watch these videos. But in a world where we care about the name brands and even more the models from those brands, do we actually really take the time to compare the weight of the shoe relative to making a purchase? Like, for example, if you take a Nike Vaporfly in your size versus a Pegasus in your size, you're not going to not run in the Peg just because it's heavier. No, you're going to find out if the Peg is a shoe worth running in relative to its category being a daily trainer. And arguably, heavier weighted shoes strengthen your legs anyway, making you a stronger runner overall. So when race day comes, you'll be better for it. And that doesn't even cover the aspects of like the roll technology or the drop of the shoe or if it's carbon plated or not. None of that. So I just wanted to put that out there before I proceed. I know it's a little bit of a tangent, but yeah, just go with me. Because I'm going to tell you the weight of my shoe, and then I'm going to follow it up with something really interesting that I found. So the weight of my men's size 12 is 23.8 ounces, or 674 grams. You want to know something crazy? You know the specs that they show on the website, like size 8 or size 9 or whatever standard that they use for their measurements? Yeah, my numbers are over double the weight listed on the website. And that's kind of why I have to circle back and honestly say I don't give much stock to weight of the shoes. The feel of any shoe's weight is 100% relative to you based upon the shoes you've already run in. Alternatively, if you've compared the weight of the shoe you really love to the shoes being reviewed, I could see that, that would actually be pretty helpful. But between one new shoe versus another, I'm still not really seeing the relevance here. So all that being said, comment about your opinion on the topic down below, because I'm actually really curious about what you think. So, done with the tangent, moving on. Altra considers this to be a moderate category for cushioning on the shoe. So it's not a high or max cushion shoe like you would see, for example, from their Olympus or the Mont Blanc. But don't let that fool you. I know many people who have used these outgoing models for races upwards of 50K and even 50 milers. So it's certainly built for an all-around multi-tool use shoe. The stack height is never changing, 25 millimeters, and the drop, of course, is that 0 millimeter. And for the interior of the heel, I couldn't be more happier with the comfort of this heel and what it delivers. It's secure, it's flexible, it cups your ankle perfectly. So I'm going to make a specific call out for those of you who might still have an older Lone Peak like a 4 or 4.5. Rest assured, the heel rub problem is gone. I believe the reason for this is that they actually went away from a more rigid frame around the heel here, and since the 6, maybe even the 5. And the 7 is no exception, giving you enough structure from the materials without adding any extra framing or molds inside. Very grateful for that. So as far as the exterior of the heel here, there's actually a plastic piece that wraps around the exterior of the ankle and the heel, which keeps your foot securely in place at the bottom. There is another structured piece inside the materials, but it's actually much lower. You can feel it between the top of the heel gaiter and the bottom of the heel tab, almost like a moon shape inside. I think it actually helps give structure and some stability when you're actually on your runs. So let's talk about the infamous trail rudder, which, if you're not familiar with it, it's this extended outsole piece here. I believe it doesn't appear to come out as far as previous models, far from the midsole here, which I'm in support of, given that, at least for my stride, I ended up with a lot of mud on my calves and the back of my thighs. It would actually kick up sand, which inevitably made its way inside the shoe. So this is a welcome change regarding the trail rudder. To give those kind of a background, I believe that this was actually intended for those who are descending or on their descents to give you more secure and stable traction. I don't actually know how effective the design is myself, but then again, I have never cut the rudder off to find out how much of a difference it really makes regarding stability, and I'm frankly not about to do that. So if you're enjoying this video, it would mean so much if you take the time to subscribe to the channel. If you wouldn't mind going a step further and sharing this video with someone who you think would like it, these are two of the biggest ways you can show your support for a little baby channel like mine. I appreciate it. Thank you. And of course, this couldn't be a proper trail shoe review without talking about the Outsole. I was a big fan of my previous models that I ran in. I really enjoyed the first 300 to 400 miles as it provided a ton of reliable grip and confidence on all the trails I took on. I really enjoyed running in these in muddy conditions because they shed clay and mud really well. Fast forward to today, the Max Track Bear Claw style outsole here has been updated to handle even better in wetter conditions. That's really good news. So my favorite muddy forest trails are going to be even better to run on. It has a robust 5mm lug pattern, which provides multi-directional traction, helpful in situations from packed single track to rigorous technical trails. This shoe gives me the confidence other trail shoes haven't. Altra continues to implement a stone guard design helpful in protecting the bottom of your feet from surfaces that would otherwise poke up and impact the bottom of your feet. And I've also noticed that this helps when running on above ground routes. You have some exposed midsole foam here. The only thing I haven't been able to suss out is in places where there's gravel and smaller rocks, will they wedge themselves in between the rubber materials and poke the bottom of your foot via the midsole foam? I think their intent with this design, however, is well warranted and welcome because it looks like you get better flexion in missing sections of the rubber where instead you see the midsole foam. Also, I have to wonder if the exposed midsole foam will actually act as a mechanism to help eject mud and clay from the pressure to push out the mud. When the rubber isn't flexible enough to do so, I could see the midsole performing this task well. Listen, I'm a big guy. I know that I'm inevitably not going to get as many miles out of this as some other smaller frame guys. But if this outsole is anything similar to previous pairs, I expect to get at least a comfortable 300, maybe 400 miles out of it. So overall, I really like this outsole. I feel much more comfortable running in these than, honestly, the Nike Pegasus Trail 4. Between the ride and the fit and the outsole and the traction, and especially on slippery surfaces, I trust this significantly more. And so yeah, that's my assessment on the outsole. So let's talk about the sizing. For me, I stuck with the size that's worked best for me in the past, which is a US men's size 12. It's worth clarifying in Altra's offerings that they actually have 3 widths to choose from, and I picked and loved the patented original foot shape fit. This gives me all the room I need in the toe box, while also ensuring a properly fitting shoe where my feet aren't sliding around inside. I will say if your only Altra experience is running on the Olympus, that shoe doesn't represent this shoe's sizing. It's actually a bit smaller than the Lone Peak's fit. That shoe surprised me because the 12.5 wide, not the original foot shape width, fit me best. So if you can spare the time going into the store to get an accurate fit, you'll likely be a happier consumer as a result. Additionally, having tested the Olympus 4 and feeling there's a height difference about how far your heel sits above the collar, I feel like there's more security from this collar than what I experienced from the Olympus 4. Some people like feeling a little bit more space around their ankles, but for me, especially on more technical terrain, I want to have more wraparound from my heel collar to give me that added amount of security. So how did it feel like running in these shoes? Overall, I loved it. From the snowy trails, even with some icy areas, to the muddy, to the packed single track, they're all the things you come to expect from the Lone Peak line. A stable comfort ride underfoot, a grippy high traction shoe with versatility in nearly all running scenarios, a foolproof secure lockdown, reliable materials that seem more durable than previous iterations, and overall an enjoyable ride experience. I really can't say enough good things about the shoe. And you may be asking yourself right about now, what's the catch? You can't have a shoe review without going over areas where it struggled, right? Well, that leads me to where I see the shoe might give some a moment's pause. While I don't think that there's really any design or functional issues with the shoe, I do think user experience differs enough from person to person to make this shoe more polarizing than at first glance. If you've never run in a zero drop shoe before, and or you're someone who relies heavily on moderate to high drop shoes, this could be a big change for you. So much so, some might not even enjoy running in a pair of shoes with a 0mm drop, because you're inevitably expending more energy to propel yourself forward, so it feels like you're exhausting yourself even quicker. It can at times feel more like a slog. Those of you who aren't used to the zero drop will see you no longer have the advantage from the offset angle, and that doesn't even factor what kind of foot strike you employ. The muscles you use are different when running in a zero drop shoe, muscles that other shoes tend to allow you to neglect. Don't get me wrong, there's advantages to zero drop shoes, just as there are in 8mm drops and higher. I wouldn't necessarily race in a zero drop shoe because I favor a shoe with more of an offset to give me an advantage while racing. But during training, I welcome an extra challenge. On the flip side, the benefits from using a zero drop shoe are worth it in my opinion. I tend to wake up with less fatigue in my legs after running in ultras simply because there's more calf extension versus shortening while running. Meanwhile, when I run in a shoe with a higher stack height, I get the benefits of having that higher drop, but that calf shortens, and that just means that I have to be more intentional about getting in my stretches. So those are some things to think about before purchasing the shoe. Not enough to deter me, obviously, but I just wanted to put those things out there. So who is this shoe made for? This is a trail shoe for anyone and everyone. In fact, I would have to say those who are wanting to get into the trail running space, this shoe is a favorite of mine and has been from previous iterations. On the other end of the spectrum, for those of you who have more experience on trails who have yet to try this shoe thus far, it's, in my opinion, a no-brainer here. It provides you a very robust, tried and true trail running shoe at a very affordable price. The Lone Peak has been a trusted shoe for my winter running sessions, as well as tackling muddy and technical terrain. And the Lone Peak 7 is no exception. I'm really looking forward to taking these out on other routes outside my area and pushing the limits on those runs. In fact, this just makes me want to pack up the truck right now, drive over to Oregon with my family, and run on my favorite trails along the North Oregon coastline. So that concludes my review of the Ultra Lone Peak 7. I hope you found this video helpful. Please let me know by hitting the like button if you did, and please consider subscribing. Thanks so much for watching, and if anyone asks you what's your favorite YouTube running channel, just tell them it's time to run.